Joining me now is Tom Fitton, the president of that great organization, the author of the new book, Rights and Freedoms in Peril, an investigative report on the left's attack on America. Tom, good to have you with us, sir.
Hey, Vince, good to be with you again. How are you?
I'm doing good. So what does Judicial Watch do in the midst of an election year? Does anything change about the pace of your organization's digging?
Oh, things get a bit more intense. There are higher stakes, right? When you're talking about issues that people care about as it might relate to the election. We have litigation about the process of elections, whether our rolls are going to be clean or dirty. We've been suing to clean up the rolls. In the last year and a half, 2 years, we've cleaned up 4 million names from the rolls, 1.2 million in L.A. County alone. We went up to New York. We sued. They said, okay. The city removed 450,000 names in a drop of a hat. Down here in D.C., we started asking questions. They removed 138,000 names.
Even in D.C.?
Even the liberal jurisdictions realize, we're supposed to do this,
Yeah.
and no one really pushes us to do it until Judicial Watch comes along.
What kind of names are you finding that need to be purged from the rolls? Are we talking like people who are registered in multiple states? Is that the kind of person we're talking about?
That's the big number, right? Folks who move away.
Yeah.
People who die, you really got to be an incompetent, nefarious jurisdiction to let them stay on the rolls for a long time.
Yeah, because the state has the death certificate.
Right.
They know who's dead.
Now, people who move away, you got to track that. And there's an easy way to do it, and without boring anyone, it's simply not done. It means just sending a card. You haven't voted. Are you still there? And if they don't respond in a few years, you remove them from the rolls. And the problem is if you've got dirty names on the rolls, you have dirty lists, that's an opportunity for voter fraud. That's why the lists are supposed to be clean. And in Virginia, as I'm sure you've talked about, the Justice Department's been zero help in cleaning up the millions of names that need to be cleaned up. Instead, they're using the law to say, oh, well, you're supposed to keep people who aren't eligible to even be on the list to be on the list, non-citizens.
It's not that they're not helping. They're actually making things worse. They're coming in, they're saying, you know what needs to happen? You should have foreign nationals on your voter rolls. And thank God Governor Youngkin's pushing back against this and saying, what? No. First of all, our laws are clear. Keep your big fat nose out of this.
And the other big issue that gets me going, of course everything gets me going,
I know,
is counting ballots after the election.
Yeah.
And you got two issues. Counting ballots because you're too incompetent to count them fully on Election Day, like up in Philadelphia, or allowing ballots to be received and then counted for days afterwards. In Mississippi, 5 days. Here in D.C., I think it's a 7-day rule. In Illinois, they receive ballots up to 14 days after the election, they still count them.
Amazing.
And the problem is federal law says there's an election day, not an election week.
That's right.
And I think if there's going to be a controversy in 2024, it's going to be, we don't know who won on election night.
Yeah.
Because there are other votes to be counted, which ain't normal, ain't right, and I would argue unlawful.
And Pennsylvania, by the way, is already set up to do exactly what you're talking about.
That's right.
That's going to be the state. This is the pivotal state, Pennsylvania. At least they claim. I mean, this is the one that everybody's watching. It's certainly where the campaigns are spending all their time and money. And Pennsylvania, as of this moment, is expected not to give us an answer on election night. And they're already saying, once again, expected to wait days to find out. And so you wonder, I was wondering about this recently. I was like, well, what's the actual holdup? Why would you have to wait that long? Why can't every state be like Florida, where you can send in your ballot or your absentee ballot, get those early votes in, they all get counted by election night, we have an answer. Virginia, you'll have an answer by election night. Why can't Pennsylvania do it? They say, oh, well, it's all these early votes that come in. We just don't have enough people to count them, so they have to be counted over the days that ensue. Bullcrap. Hire the people then. A functional system would bring in every last person you need to make sure that the voters could trust the election. They're not doing that in Pennsylvania.
No, they're not. And I've joked, in France, they can figure out who won on election night.
Yeah. And the ballots are in French. Isn't that crazy?
But they can't do it in Philadelphia? and it's really a Philadelphia issue, right? It's really Philadelphia issue.
Sure.
And that, to me, is going to lead to the unpleasantness.
Yeah.
So now if the election clearly goes one way or the other on election night, these issues won't be as upfront, but it's still a risk to – why would you trust an election where they're counting ballots after Election Day? The temptation for fraud is so great. And I tell you, arguably, it's contrary to law. And that's why we've been in court, at least counting on challenging ballots that are counted that are received after Election Day, which is insanity. But 19 states do it.
It's too much. And there's a lot on the line, as you write about in your new book, Rights and Freedoms in Peril, an investigative report on the left's attack on America. Give us sort of the state of play right now in the country. The left controls so many, almost all of the levers of power.
Yeah.
Their hope is that upon the conclusion of this election, they'll control even more. What's going on in our country right now, Tom?
I think there's this rising communist challenge to the institutions that protect us. I mean, it's not Republican versus Democrat. There's a kind of a radical wing of one particular party, it looks like. And the rest of and the danger is not that, they'll get the numbers to win elections. It's that people who know better will allow them to abuse our Constitution and our republic.
Mm-hmm.
And even more dangerously, you have this embrace of that approach by powerful people like Joe Biden and Democrats in Congress who abused what happened on January 6th, using it as a cudgel to try to target their political enemies, trying to jail President Trump.
Yes.
Nothing like that's ever happened before in American history. And then there's this rejection of the First Amendment, absolute rejection of the First Amendment. And when I'm censored, it's terrible. But what's even more terrible is that people who want to hear from me, they're censored too. So you're likely a crime victim, as best I can tell.
Yeah.
If Trump's been censored and you've been following him and you can't get access to that information, or someone else you followed. So there are tens of millions of victims of this censorship. And then on top of that, we've got the destruction of our border. And, every town now is a border town.
Right.
Thanks to this. And not only is it the economic distress, but their mere presence here in the United States changes our politics in the sense if they're counted and not deported in the next census. That means that Democrat states, leftist states, get extra seats in Congress or retain seats they otherwise might lose because of citizens leaving.
Yeah.
And that's like 25 states potentially.
And that's at the minimum
Seats,
in terms of the type of political benefit they derive from this. At the maximum is they make everybody citizens and then they lock in votes for their party. So there's a range of options on the table, but all of them benefit Democrats. None of them benefit Republicans. And one of the things I think you're getting at the heart of, you talk about the economics of this, at its core, so much of this is just a corrupt crony protection racket. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
That there are major financial interests, big pharmaceutical companies, big defense contractors, where they're deriving so much financial benefit from a corrupt relationship with our government that they're perfectly happy to go along with this. This is really, I think, really at the epicenter of this. This is why Trump is so rejected by this system, because he dares say things out loud like maybe we should confront that.
Now, we're supposed to forget about the FEMA scandal, right? To your point. The scandal about FEMA and the taking care of these illegal aliens is that there are tens of billions of dollars in tax dollars being funneled through bureaucracies, government bureaucracies, and affiliated NGOs, non-governmental organizations, to engage in the biggest human trafficking operation in the history of humanity, the biggest child trafficking operation in the history of humanity. And we're just supposed to pretend that's a non-scandal.
Yeah. And in Springfield, Ohio, you talk to the mayor, you talk to the governor of that state, Mike DeWine, and they make excuses like, well, the employers need them. This is what they'll say. They'll say, well, the businesses need them. That's crap. We have American citizens, especially men, who've fallen entirely out of the labor force. This is what J.D. Vance is trying to explain to these morons on the Sunday shows. We have people who, right in this country, who need to be taken care of. And instead, because of these corrupt relationships, we're importing foreign nationals to supplant American workers? I don't like that deal.
Yeah, I mean, there's no major industry I'm aware of where foreign nationals are the majority of workers. I mean, the idea that there are some jobs Americans won't do is so patronizing. Yeah. I don't know about you. I did jobs that supposedly other people wouldn't do. My family, I come from family who did jobs that supposedly other Americans wouldn't do. And it's just so contemptuous of people who work for a living in the sense of hard work, physical labor and things. You're a maid. Only an Hispanic would be made. Who's being the racist?
Well, I need a better deal on my servants. That's the position the left takes. In fact, I'm going to play some audio for you. This is on CNN just in the last 24 hours. Scott Jennings, who's like he's like Leonidas in the hot gates, like just fighting everybody off all the time. And Catherine Rampell from the Washington Post saying, if everyone gets deported, where am I going to get my servants from?
State, which he can now do because of the Supreme Court. And he's going to take on these countries that screw American workers. That's the plan. And by the way, he's going to crack down on immigration to the benefit of American workers.
He's going to deport 20 million people, the people who pick your crops, the people who process your meat, the people who, care for your grandmother, the people who serve all sorts of critical functions in this country.
Yeah, you hear that? So my grandma's not going to be taken care of anymore because of Donald Trump. This is crazy. So what she just described is a kind of a perfect encapsulation of the leftist mind, which is like, we need these people.
Who will mow my lawn?
Yeah, and I get a great deal on them because I'm paying them slave wages.
That's right. That's right. And they want them to be able to vote. And I guess the best circumstance would be to keep them as non-citizens who vote when they're needed to, with a wink and a nod, while ensuring that they don't have the connections necessary to make them citizens and have them earn a living that Americans rightly expect.
And it's a system, ultimately, as you're describing, of exploitation. This is why, the borders get kicked wide open, and then we have all these women who are being raped and killed, including Jocelyn Nungaret. I mean, I can't even believe how awful that story is. She's 12 years old. She's attacked by these gangsters. She's raped and killed. And last night, Brett Baer presents her mother in congressional testimony on video to Kamala Harris. And Kamala, my guess is that was the first time she had ever heard that name said out loud.
These criminals would not be here but for the open borders, but for the sanctuary policies that allow them to live in virtually every major city, most every major state in the country. And we're supposed to pretend, illegal aliens don't commit more crimes than non-citizens. They wouldn't be the crimes committed if they weren't here.
What a disgusting answer, by the way. Just to be like, who's worse? Americans.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
What kind of political debate is this where you insult me like that?
These are entirely preventable crimes.
Yeah.
Entirely preventable crimes. As that where our criminals are literally placed at our throats. These criminals are placed at our throats by the federal government.
Do you think people are waking up to all of this? Are any positive developments on this front? Because I do think if you look at surveys, you're finding that more and more Americans are turning away from the legacy media. The trust has bottomed out, and for good reason. And many are saying, actually, I'm turning to social media. I'm turning to talk radio. I'm turning to, interestingly, Newsmax, I was just saying recently, shares the same position with MSNBC. MSNBC is going down. Newsmax is going up. Do you think that there's some cause for optimism?
Yeah, in some ways. But on the other hand, there's never been a majority support for an illegal alien invasion. There's never been a majority support for just having everyone show up at the polls with no voter ID. No one supports allowing non-citizens to vote. I mean, these are 80-20 issues.
But they like sex changes on prisoners,
yeah,
right?
And there's not much majority support for that. And what's troubling, the left finds troubling about Trump and the establishment is that Trump agrees with this the big majority on these issues and actually wants to do something about it.
That's why I find it so compelling when he says it's not about conservative or liberal. He's been saying a lot lately. It's about common sense. He just keeps repeating it. It's like, look, I guess I'm conservative, yeah, but it's just common sense.
Yeah, and it used to be when I heard a Republican talk like that, I'm like, oh, no, that's a sign, to buy into the establishment.
Yeah.
But when he's talking about it, that is truly just this is just common sense approaches. And this isn't an endorsement. I'm not saying vote for or against Trump, but I'm highlighting the anger, the establishment and left-wing anger at him, because he does kind of have this approach where these basic views that virtually all Americans share, or a super large majority share, he's willing to go to bat for, and that's why, despite all of his other issues, he's succeeding. and he's creeping back into the presidency by all accounts.
Remind me, Judicial Watch is a 501c3, right?
We are C3.
I was just making sure. So in case you're wondering why he said, he can't endorse. He can't endorse. But Trump definitely...
I guess I can in my personal capacity, but I avoid it.
Yeah, that's all right. I was just clarifying for the
people.
people.
The leftists would think you're not fooling anyone, Fitton. As to who you believe,
but also
who support.
That's right. But also, let's be honest, who's got a better set of values? You don't have to do a presidential endorsement to be like, yeah, Trump's way better than Kamala.
And I put the book out here because I'm concerned that people don't have the full set of information necessary, the full set to make a decision. Not even in this election, but about these public policy debates. We're all being lied to about what went on in 2020. We're being lied to about COVID. We're being lied to about the border, about the left's attack on our First Amendment rights, about this crazed DEI obsession. I mean, that's the contagion that's going to destroy America, not COVID, where the left is embracing racist discrimination.
Yes.
In a way to maximize their Marxist impacts. That's what they need to know about, and how the left doesn't just want to steal elections, they want to end elections. And Exhibit A is Kamala, excuse me. She negated 15 million votes in her coup against Biden.
Mm-hmm.
And we're all supposed to pretend that's normal. Nothing like that's ever happened. I think it raises substantial legal and civil rights issues, and no one's been pushing her on it. I mean, Bret Baier kind of walked up to it during the interview saying, well, what about, his cognitive challenges? How does that work? And she refused to answer the question.
Yeah, she did. I think people are tired of being lied to. If you're tired and would like some truth, the book is Rights and Freedoms in Peril, an investigative report on the left's attack on America. Tom Fitton, congratulations on yet another great book, sir. Good to talk to you.
Good. Thank you.